北川さん
五条くん、待って。今、やばくて。一旦、落ち着きたいから。
What's going on, my friends? Episode 22 or episode 10 of season 2 of My Dress Up Darling, and what a adorably perfect episode. I haven't laughed as hard as I did all weekend when Marin legitimately made herself cry on the most realistic of denial conversation she could ever have with her imagination, as she imagined her telling Gojo that she liked him and him responding with, "Thank you, give me some time to think about it," and then constantly avoiding her. It was so realistic in her imagination, all the different scenarios that she put herself in because of past experiences. It was so realistic that she literally started sobbing from it. And he hadn't even denied her yet. Okay? That was just an incredibly funny moment in this week's episode. The second hilarious moment is when she worked herself up to the nth degree, trying on bras, trying on panties, trying to find the right underwear to wear around Gojo, because she was like, it's going down. And it was even more solidified to her where Gojo came out of the bath in her hoodie. He was not happy about wearing the sloppy doppy hoodie that she had prepared for him, and because of that, it kind of soured his mood a little bit. So he looked like a very serious man out on a mission. She was like, he's gonna eat me up, and we haven't even gone through all the steps necessary, but it's about to go down. So she psyched herself up, and she ended up on a pair of white panties, white bra, because she wanted to seem innocent and color them red for the first time. And it was just hilarious. And she put herself in that predicament. And the other funny scene is when she got overstimulated and ended up falling off of the couch because Gojo looked at her. He's like, "Get over here, mama." She was like, "Yo, what? Obviously, he said, "Hey, why are you sitting so far away?" But in her mind, she was just like, "Get over here, mamas." It was so effing funny. So she falls off the couch, and then obviously, he lands on top of her, or he puts himself on top of her. He's like, "Hey, are you okay?" But she sees him in a different light in that moment. And she was like, "I can't do this right now. Let me eat first to calm myself down." He's like, "Okay." So that is effing hilarious. And then she falls asleep. She just passes out after noodles. So he carries her, puts her in bed, and he goes to play the game. Effing funny, okay? So all of those moments are just hilarious. And I'll talk about the game in a second, because there's a game inside of the game, or there's a game inside the anime. But then, fast forward to later, and she pusses out. For the first time, I thought she was actually going to muster up the courage and have the balls to tell Gojo straight up, like, "Hey, this might come as a surprise to you, but, I really like you, and, we should start dating," or something like that. But she ends up just saying, "Can I come over tomorrow?" And that was funny as well, too. Gojo's like, "Yeah, come over." It's funny, too. Or it's adorably charming because, as she goes over to go eat, as she does every night, at this point. Like, they're basically, like, married, or engaged, I guess you could say. That's the normal behavior people would have when they're engaged and they don't live together, as they're constantly at each other's place and stuff like that. That happens when you're dating too, but I think when you're engaged, it's like you're part of the family, for sure. And then, obviously when you're married, you officially. But she goes over like she did every night, and I think she realized how much affection Gojo has for her, because she notices, like, oh, on an off conversation, she just simply mentioned that, like, "Oh, I'm trying to make sure I stay away from fried food, because of my diet." And she didn't dive into detail. She didn't, she just like, it was just something that was just an off chance in a conversation. And he listened and he learned and he took notice of it. So much so that he was like, "Oh, I made you fried mackerel, but I remember that, I don't want you eating late. I know you're on your diet, and blah, blah." And she realized how much affection that his actions, like, he may not say it either, but all of his actions around her or towards her show that his affection levels like maxed out, right? Like boys in love, because he listens. He takes everything that she says to heart. And she realized in that moment of how deeply he cares for her, regardless of if it's like a friend, if it's like this, it's just really high. So I love that moment too. And and then she said, next week or whenever the thing happens, after her cosplay, she's gonna have the courage to tell him. And hopefully it ends up happening before the end of the season. The last thing I'll talk about is the video game that Gojo played. I'll just say this. One, I wish it was real. That sounds like a crazy game. I was reading, each dialogue by dialogue, and like this girl who ended up being a nun, who ended up being a mental patient, like in a mental ward, kind of made up a scenario to protect herself because she was getting S and then aid by her father and her family, and going through a bunch of stuff and using the Bible as a front, and just crazy. The topic of that game, that visual novel game, is crazy. I was like, man, I would love, if that was real, I would love to play that. And I was like, that seems like it fucked up Gojo's mental. And I was like, God, that's crazy. So like that was a serious, like I was reading dialogue, but I was like, oh my God, like it was like, I don't even want to repeat the lines. It was crazy though. And I was just I was caught off guard because I paused and I was like, because it goes pretty quickly, because you have the subtitles for his reaction, and then you have the subtitles for each of the dialogue pieces. I was like, oh my God. So I paused and went by line. I was like, when it was like, come downstairs, and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. So it was crazy. So this episode was just 10 out of 10. It was such a good episode. And normally I would gripe, I would bitch, and I would complain about, the slow burn romance. But the way that they approach it here is so unique. And, you have Marin confiding in a friend, because she's flipping herself out, and you have Gojo, who's just innocent, who doesn't quite get it, and it, for the characters that the author, for the characters that she built here, the way that the romance is panning out, even if it's slow, it just makes sense for these very well curated and written characters. You know what I mean? There's a lot of other shows to where it gets really slow, or the character ends up being dumb, or they don't get it. And it doesn't quite fit the narrative or the characters. You're like, well, why would they? They're so confident, but then now they're dumb. This one is like the way that she wrote these characters, it just works. So yeah, I'll leave you guys on those thoughts there. Let me know your guys' thoughts about this episode down in the comments below. But I love this show so much. I need to go get my manga, because at the last book, I think it's volume 9. I think I have 8 or 9. But basically where we're at now in the anime is what I have my collection up to. So I need to go to Barnes and Noble or something, and then you go get the other books, because I had read it, and then I was like, you know what? I don't want to ruin the show. So I stopped reading. Like after season 1, I was like, oh, let me collect the books, and I started reading them. I was like, oh, you know what? Let me pause, because I was like, I don't want to ruin this show. And thankfully I didn't, because yeah. Anyways, I'll see you guys next week. Awesome episode. Love y'all. Peace out.